Liam had been working as a long-haul truck driver for 5 years, and he had never once regretted choosing this profession. The allure of the open road had captivated him since childhood, lingering in his thoughts for many years. Even as a schoolboy, Liam collected newspaper clippings featuring various trucks and put them in a special album. Thanks to this, his parents never struggled to find him the perfect gift. Of course, they always gave him toy trucks and nothing else. When Liam grew up and graduated from high school, he immediately set out to fulfill his lifelong dream. Having gotten the necessary driver's license, he secured a job with the transportation company that carried goods to various parts of the country. At first, dispatchers gave him easy assignments, understanding that he needed to gain experience. But as Liam traversed the country alongside his senior companion, George, he climbed to the top of the long-haul driver rankings in his state and even landed a position as a senior assistant to the director of the transportation company. Now, Liam wasn't afraid to go on trips alone without a partner. He always meticulously planned out his routes using maps or GPS navigation. He enjoyed the steady hum of the engine and the sound of the tires on the sun-warmed asphalt. He knew he had made the right choice in life and was determined to stick with it under any circumstances. George, his loyal and time-tested colleague, only chuckled at him. He was familiar with that spark in Liam's eyes, the kind one gets when they feel they've become one entity with their truck. However, while Liam was fortunate to have found the job he loved, his personal life wasn't nearly as great. But it wasn't his fault. Fate always brought Liam together with people who either didn't suit his character or didn't share his views on life. But one day, he met a nice woman from his town. However, that encounter was rather brief. All that the young people managed to do was spend a couple of hours chatting in a cafe. The woman who had captured Liam's heart was named Jessica. She had recently gone through a painful divorce from her husband, who had left her for a wealthy mistress. Jessica didn't have any children on her own, but she did have a strong desire to have them. Liam understood this from the way she talked about motherhood and everything associated with it. As Liam was going to depart on his next trip in just an hour, the young people politely bid farewell, promising to see each other again. Back then, they didn't know that their next meeting would be far in the future. "I will definitely call you when I'm back in town, maybe even sooner," Liam said as he said goodbye, touching Jessica's hand before leaving. Setting off on yet another journey, the young driver hoped to return as soon as possible, but things didn't go as planned. First, the transportation company's director sent him on a solo trip, so he had to travel without his trusted companion, George. Liam wasn't afraid of traveling alone, not at all. It was just that he had grown so accustomed to George's presence over the years that he considered him a brother. Liam almost knew everything about his partner. He was well aware of the fact that George's wife left him for a wealthy businessman and that he was raising 2 kiddos on his own because their mother abandoned them. How do you deal with it all? Liam wondered, but his partner just chuckled. George was 5 years older than Liam and had seen a lot in his life. "Kiddos, they are our future, buddy. Trust me, there's nothing more important in the world than the happiness of these little ones," George always said. Liam knew that after his wife's betrayal, his partner was raising 3-year-old twins, Billy and Simon, who would become the center of his universe. Since George spent a lot of time on the road, he hired a nanny to look after the boys while he was away. Returning home from his trips, George always brought toys for the kiddos, making sure to buy the same ones for both of them. Sometimes Liam also bought gifts for the kiddos, wishing to emphasize his respect for his partner. But on this particular trip, things were off from the very beginning. Most of it was due to the fact that Liam and George were sent to opposite ends of the country and couldn't really communicate with each other. Before driving even 50 miles, Liam got a flat tire. As he was dealing with the issue and waiting for help to arrive, his phone fell out of his pocket, but Liam didn't notice that. That was the phone that had Jessica's number stored in it, the number he had promised to call. When Liam realized that he'd lost his phone, it was already too late, so there was no point in looking for it. At the same time, hundreds of miles away, George was driving down the route assigned by the dispatch, humming his favorite song. The driver was in a good mood and feeling rather confident. The engine of his trailer was purring like a cat, and he knew the route well, having driven there hundreds of times. But when a swerving off-road vehicle appeared ahead, George realized he was in a serious predicament. The problem was that there was at least 6 people inside the car that had veered into his lane, and judging by the erratic driving, the man behind the wheel was drunk. George made a quick decision and turned the steering wheel hard to the right. Intentionally avoiding the collision, George directed his truck towards a cliff. George knew that in a head-on collision, the passengers in the off-road vehicle wouldn't stand a chance. At that speed, the car would simply be crushed like a tin can, ending the lives of several people. However, the truck driver himself would have a good chance of survival. On the other hand, by plummeting off the cliff, George had no chance. Liam only learned about what had happened several hours later. The dispatcher intentionally didn't tell him sooner, fearing his reaction. Liam sat in silence for several minutes, unable to find the words. Tears welled up in his eyes and his lips started trembling. George had been his partner for almost 5 years, and in that time, they had become true friends. They repaired their trucks together, carried the burdens of the long journey together. Now, Liam felt like an orphan. Oh, George, how could this happen? The young man kept repeating, covering his eyes with his hands. But there was nothing he could do, and Liam understood that. Unfortunately, the chain of tragic events didn't end there. The news of George's death shook his mother, who had already been complaining of chest pain. The accident landed the poor woman in the hospital. Trying to help the unfortunate woman, Liam took care of all the arrangements of her son's funeral. Mrs. Wallace survived her son by only 3 days, failing to make it through the heart attack. That's when Liam faced a very important question: what to do with Liam's children, 3-year-old Billy and Simon. He understood perfectly well that if he didn't become their guardian, the children would end up in an orphanage. But Liam couldn't allow that to happen. He remembered George's words about his kiddos and was ready to do anything to get custody of them. "I promise you, George, I will help you kiddos no matter the cost," Liam said as he stood by his friend's grave. Intending to adopt Billy and Simon, he was confident in the success of his plan and didn't even suspect what kind of problems he would encounter in reality. Overwhelmed by the array of devastating events that occurred in such a short span of time, Liam felt that his head was spinning. It wasn't surprising that after everything that had happened, the man didn't really think about Jessica, the nice young woman he'd recently met. It took Liam a month to get all the documents in order. During this time, he came to visit Simon and Billy every day, bringing them toys and treats. But when it came time for the interview with the social services, it turned out that not everyone on the committee was ready to entrust the children to Liam. "Your family situation is unstable. Your work involves constant travel. Who will look after the children during that time?" the secretary asked. "I'm sorry, sir, but couldn't I hire a nanny to take care of the kiddos in my absence? Moreover, I can ask the dispatcher not to send me on any long trips," Liam pleaded. Only then did he realize that his entire plan was in danger. Looking hopefully at the faces of the commission members, Liam shuddered. "No, this simply can't be happening." Still unable to believe his eyes, Liam looked more closely and froze in astonishment. One of the committee members was the same woman named Jessica. She immediately recognized Liam. Her eyes gave her away. It was Jessica who convinced the rest of the committee to let Liam get the kiddos. As fate would have it, it was Jessica's recommendation that helped the young driver achieve his goal. "Thank you so much. I'm so sorry I didn't call you back then," Liam apologized. But Jessica understood that it wasn't Liam's fault. She knew that despite the death of Simon and Billy's father, he remained Liam's best friend. Jessica was very impressed by what the young driver did, so much so that she decided to help him raise the kiddos. Thanks to her, Liam managed to get by without a nanny, which saved their already stretched family budget. At first, Jessica came by a few times a week to stand in for Liam during his trips. Then, after getting used to the situation and the family, she moved in with them. Liam greatly appreciated the trust she placed in him and surrounded Jessica with love and care before proposing to her just 2 months later. Anxiously awaiting her answer, Liam was worried that Jessica might consider his proposal impulsive or premature. But when Jessica said yes, his joy knew no bounds. At that time, Liam didn't yet know that fate had another surprise in store for him, a good one this time. It turned out that Jessica was pregnant, and with triplets too. This news made Liam the happiest man on earth. "It's a real miracle. Now I'm going to have 5 children," the young father exclaimed with a smile, inadvertently thinking of his late friend, George. Over the next 10 years, Jessica and Liam had another child, thereby sealing their status as a large family. Visiting George's grave from time to time, Liam shared the latest news, convinced that his friend could hear him, even if he couldn't respond. Simon and Billy always knew that they were adopted, and Liam did everything he could to make sure their dad remained a vivid memory for them. Only when he became a father himself did Liam truly understand the meaning of the words spoken by George long ago. Children are the true happiness in life. They are the reason to live and fight for one's own family until the very, very end.